Guten Tag, alle.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Keep It Tottenham podcast with me, the token bird, and...
Vincent Vega.
Hmm.
See you.
Yeah.
Yeah, man of a thousand voices, all of them Welsh.
Goch, goch.
Yeah.
Here's some music. Tell us what's happening.
Right, breaking news. It's okay. Disaster has been abated. The weeping and wailing of children that's cessated because Tottenham...
Cessated.
Yeah, finished.
That word.
Stopped.
Ceased.
Yeah. Victory against the Sound of Music 11 has made everything better.
I've never watched that, you know, ever.
It's
and you couldn't make me watch it either.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste. I don't think he's aged well.
Like some of our players.
I'm resisting the urge to do because I used to do an impression as a joke of Michael Kane.
Laughing at his own joke already, he's not even told it. Go on, you're going to have to do it now.
Duck down in the graveyard and watch out for the Bavaria guards. It's just rubbish, but it used to go down well with people who'd been drinking all day in pubs. So
lots of things go down well with them.
Once we started discussing Hammers and Roger Stein or whatever, Rogers and Hammerstein musical.
Hammers and Roger Stein.
Hammers and Roger Stein. So everything's great now.
Is it?
No, just Shazam. All it takes is 4 more goals against a team you've already scored 4 against, and
against an Austrian Kneiper team.
Number 7 in the Austrian league. I did make an unkind reference to the fact they may have fared better in the Eurovision Song Contest than they would in the Europa
Mind you,
League.
everybody fares better than the UK in the Eurovision Song Contest of late.
Tone deaf Tottenham. So Bailey's...
Iceland should have won last year.
Yeah, but nobody... You see, that is something you can get me to... Well, I have watched it, actually. It's good, it is good value. It is good value. So Bailey's Batman and Robin.
How's he both at the same time?
Because he's just incredible. Unstoppable. Vasinius scores when he wants. And Dele Alli is Roy of the Rovers. Even though his wife left him. He's in the old Jamie Redknapp club.
Who is?
Yeah, Dele Alli's international model.
He wasn't married, was he?
Well, no, wife, partner, chattel, whatever they're called these days.
He's a young lad with loads of money. He'll have a
yeah, I'm sure he'll cope.
Yeah.
Especially with his patter.
Patter?
Yeah. Notice I didn't say patois because I could have got into a whole load of trouble then. A whole load of trouble.
Harry.
So we're saved. And peace be upon Daniel's funny little head and all the little brilliant decisions what are to be found in it. The drought is over, the pestilence is gone, and we're probably going to do the double.
In that case, should we just close down the blog and the podcast because we're all good? Do you think that would make a lot of people very happy?
Are you revealing me as a doom peddler?
Doom-monger.
Yeah, so I actually didn't even bother watching the end of the game against Wolfsburger because I am cursed with a triple-digit IQ, and I could see this coming. Here comes the dog. Very welcome.
Hello, tails wagging. I'm afraid we're not going anywhere yet,
Very
mate.
welcome, young man, until you start sucking your foot, and then I'm going to say something horrible and kick you down the road.
No.
In a minute. A minute, incidentally, for this poor creature is anywhere between 1 minute and 3 months. But it is a good sort of little thing, and he's gone away now. You know, that's how it works.
He's just gone over this side.
Yeah, just have a lie down.
He's come to see if his mummy will take him for a walk instead.
Just have a lie down.
You're going to have to wait because we're entertaining the people.
Yeah, paying good money to listen to this dead air. So I could just see it coming with this whole business of, Dele Alli, bloody Mourinho, and his agendas and his grudges. And, you know, just all they needed was a run out against a side that I don't have anything complimentary to say about them. They shipped in 8 goals against us. They scored once. And suddenly these people are going to save us. This show brilliantly comes out just before kick-off or just after kick-off.
Oh, are we playing
against
another game of football? Who would that be against?
Burnley.
Oh dear.
That was my best Sean Dyche. So let's see what happens. Maybe I'm a nasty piece of work, and maybe the seventh best side in Austria is a catalyst, a game changer of all game changers. I don't think so, and I'll be stunned if it makes things go brilliantly better.
Is there anything of interest happening in the club that could give us any cause for hope?
Yeah, there is. It's not the next item on the show notes, so I'll just screw those up.
Well, usually you say no and just continue in the usual doom-mongery way.
All right. Well, I tell you, there is. Here's a reason to be cheerful.
Should we mix it up? Should we do some good stuff?
Yeah. Okay. Here's a reason to be cheerful. Harry Kane could be staying.
Ooh.
Right now, this of course.
Why? Who else actually wants him?
Well, it's not. It's more complicated.
With his matchstick ankles.
His bone china ankles. The real problem is that it's not so much that he might be staying because he. No, that's enough. No. The dog thing was tedious. So let's try and recover.
Don't look at it. Oh, look, it's all hurt now.
It's his middle name. So he could be staying, but it's not because he's seen the light and he can't believe that he's actually the greatest modern day footballer the club has ever had, and he just couldn't do it. He couldn't turn his back.
Best striker in the world who's won out yet.
Correct. But it's more to do with a report from Jason Burt, who's a grown-up. He's a journalist for... Oh, this is good, isn't it? I said he was great, and I don't even know where he works. Telegraph of the Guardian. It might be the Telegraph. It's the Telegraph.
Oh, proper paper.
Yeah, for grown-ups. Not millennials, and not people that call themselves journalists, which I can't cope with. Anyway, so Jason Burt, he suggests that Levy can't get his magic number due to COVID-19. Economic fallout reasons, and my ITK guy told me that both Sonny and Cher, but Sonny and Kane were open to leaving in the summer, but as we all know, there's a big gap between open and plotting a move, and using that sort of football parlance. But the real thing is that Kane is, and we're going to talk about age as we go through this, because something that's blowing my mind is people seem to have this sort of snapshot in their head of the side dating back to about 2017. And we're not there anymore, kids. You know, every day I get up, I'm older, and there's another line and all the rest of it, and it happens to the superstars on the TV too. And Kane is 28 and Sonny's 29 in July.
Wow.
Yeah, where did that time go? And
this morning, I threw away some star drops from 2016.
Oh, that's that dreadful window cleaning stuff you had a penchant for. Yeah.
Clearly used it a lot.
Well, that's because it doesn't work. I could have helped you out with that the day you bought it.
A bit like some of our footballers.
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me, this footballer I bought doesn't work. So the economic climate... I mean, I happen to believe that clubs can get big money for players, even in this climate. But I have huge question marks, because, and I'm selling.
Do you? Do you have huge ones?
Yeah, sometimes I wake up in the night and think, oh no, not another question mark. But I have huge question marks, and I'm selling, I'm not buying, that Harry Kane, there's a lot of good there. There's an incredible amount of good if you see some of the dim and awful players that he has around him. But there's also this business that he could go out for long periods on injury. And if you lose him, the impact is massive. And it's like we were talking yesterday, that somebody told me a nasty rumour about a local Range Rover garage. He was a taxi driver and there was loads of customers, and he said, yeah, everybody that I pick up there is raging that it's terrible. I wish I'd never bought one. It's got stuff wrong with it, blah, blah. It's the same with footballers. You make an investment in that mark, spelt with a Q, in that iconic thing, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't feel good.
No.
You know, if you go to the pound shop and you buy a packet of crisps and they're not very good, and you just say, well, it was £1. You know, you wash your face, you go. But you spend 100 million or whatever stupid number they want for a big player these days. He's got to be on point. Otherwise, there's going to be... Are you all right? Are you? It's the dog, by the way. That wasn't
Not me.
anything untoward. I just think the Kane thing, he could well stay. And he could also shock us all. Because the problem we're up against is that, if you remember, when we won the Carabao Cup, and that season I looked it up this morning, we'd drawn and beaten by a small margin Chelsea in the league. So it wasn't a foregone conclusion, although we did thump Arsenal in one of the rounds before the final. But it was by no means guaranteed, and we didn't win the league that year. That side fell apart. They were sold off as the coach pulled out of Wembley Way. So if we did make the final, that doesn't say to me that everybody's going to stay together forever and ever and we're all going to be happy ever aftering.
No.
By any stretch of the imagination. In fact, that was a note for that side to say, well, look, we've come as far as we're going to come, and so let's go off and play for United and Liverpool, and as they did. So that was the cheery bit. What would you like to talk about next? As we're grabbing stuff at random.
Oh dear, have I ruined the system?
Yeah, you have.
I've ruined the system. Go on, tell us about the Backline Woes, Harry.
Right, Backline Woes, which sounds like a really bad blues number. One of the sort of accusations, and there's been a lot made against Mourinho, and as we've discussed at length, these have, in the main, come from very unthinking white noise ends of the fan spectrum, because he's only got what he's got.
Yeah.
And one quibble has been with the constant tinkering with the backline. And the problem there is pretty straightforward. And so the typical question that I see on the blog virtually every match day is, why isn't Jose playing Toby every week? Well, here's another flick back to that ageing business we were just talking about.
Yeah.
He's 32 next week.
Ancient.
Now, for a defender, that's not as bad as being a 32 midfield player, I'll grant you that. But you have to start thinking at what age footballers retire. And there are still people, if you look on Twitter, you will find somebody within the last few weeks who is bemoaning the fact that we don't have Vertonghen anymore. I mean, he's virtually in a care home.
Yeah.
In the footballing scale of things. So you've got Toby, who is just simply cannot play at a Premier League level, which is a different level to beating a bunch of Austrians. Mm-hmm. So why isn't Rodon getting more games? Well, here's another thing. That kid is very young.
Yeah.
And Pochettino, who had never made any mistakes in the eyes of plenty, he was extraordinarily reticent to bring new players into the first team. And there was a whole thing about getting them drilled in with the under-23s and the academy and blah, blah, blah and all the rest of it, which frustrated a lot of people. Mourinho isn't like that. We've seen him give fringe players a go. But the real question here is that, so can you not see the difference between bringing on a fringe player for the last 8 minutes against somebody that you're absolutely murdering, and bringing on a first team player who is only a few years older and putting him into central defence against a team that could destroy us? We've seen in recent weeks, and it's going to get worse, this is my prediction, because and even if they lift the house arrest thing, the COVID, the lockdown, people are losing their minds, and the level of abuse and death threats and stuff that's flying around, and racist stuff and I don't mean it's racist, I mean actually people using the wrong language and all the wrong things that we know that people used to say sometimes in bad places in the 60s and the 70s. People are revisiting that stuff online and making life miserable for people who have put their head above the parapet.
Was it Chavez who said this is the stuff that people used to write on toilet cubicle walls?
Correct. And it's come back because we've sunk down the U-bend of the technology. And people are just putting what they want online. They don't like something, so they say, oh, I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to do that to you, or whatever. I saw this morning there was some woman, and I watched the interview. She interviewed a rugby player, Okay, so that's my favourite sport, so I know all about that. She interviewed a rugby player, and all I saw, and it was great because I've zero interest in rugby. Mm-hmm. I don't understand how the game was set up, anything, the mechanics, nothing. And she spoke to him. There'd clearly been some referee decisions, and she spoke to him like Beth Rigby and all those other cackle of hyena, Peston, and all those people in the number 10 things during COVID, basically saying, Prime Minister, you said something completely different last week, and looking for those gotcha moments. Uh-huh. So the way she spoke to him, she was also trying to get him into, I can also understand, because it's a sporting context thing, that you're never going to get a player to tell you what he would tell you after 2 points when the microphone's off in a pub.
No.
So, because he's going to get fined, he could get suspended. There's all these governing bodies. So she had this thing with him, spoke to him about a minute and a half on the clip, and then she tweeted that she was sat in her car crying because people have been horrible to her and just said what I said now, but in a less polite fashion. That she got it wrong. She was doing this Robert Peston style of catty, trying to get him to say something. So it's just so obvious. She wanted a quote that she could slap all over something, and she's there in tears. And I think where we are online is that people have frankly lost their minds. So taking us back to the back four after that rabbit hole, if I was. So does Joe Rodon need death threats and all sorts of nastiness? Because trust me, he makes blunders like he did against Chelsea that time, and he's going to be inviting them. And I think Mourinho knows that isn't good for anybody.
No.
I mean, what's his name? Stephen Bergwijn had to close down the comments on his Instagram thing because of some ludicrous abuse that he got. So it's saddening, but unfortunately, it's the world we have made. And that's what's happening. So if I was Jose, I'd probably try to persevere with Dier too, on the basis that he's almost certainly unsellable for anywhere near the magic number.
Quite.
That Levy would do. And at 27, it's when do you announce you're going to turn back? And this is the other thing though. The other side to that, what I've said so far about Toby and Rodon and Jose makes perfect sense. But in actual fact, Eric Dier is a really good example of what's wrong with the mentality at Tottenham.
Yeah.
And you've got a guy here who can't take ownership of any situation. Now, I don't know much about him, so I'm only viewing it on what is absolutely indisputable fact. But I know that we had the business of him against West Ham, where it was his blunder, it was all on him, and he tried to put it on Tanganga, which is despicable.
You actually can't get away with this stuff because
you can't. Well, not when you're watching off 15 different camera angles. You can't. So he tried to put it on him. He can't put his hand up to anything. And we also had the business with him. We also had the business where his own brother had started a row. And if you don't believe me, put it into the blog. Eric Dier's brother, Dyer's brother. His brother had started a row with somebody who'd been abusing Eric. So this clown charges up into the stadium, and everybody said, "Oh, fair play to him, sticking up for his family," and all this nonsense. He cannot admit his own failings, and he did an interview which was so ill-conceived, in my opinion, with David Heitner in The Guardian, and he said of the recent thing they're talking about is confidence and the mood in the squad and all the rest of it. And he said that the real issue was people's perceptions versus reality. Yeah. Well, I watched you charge up into the crowd. I read the FA's report, and I watched you try to put the blame on Tanganga. And I've watched you on numerous occasions this season, live on TV in slow motion, foul up. And it's all your fault. So it's not about perception, it's about you being short of the mark. And a man who can't admit to his own failings isn't much of a man.
No, he needs to take responsibility.
Yeah.
I do wonder sometimes with young male footballers, and during the whole pandemic, which appears to have made a significant number of people's mental health worse, if it's not so much sports psychology they need as counselling.
What, like setting up a safe space for Spurs fans to discuss? A quick mention for our old friend WendyCOYS. He's created a safe space, and I just thought I'd chip this in because it is. I think it's going that way. I think it is going that way, and Wendy is very woke, and it's not a safe space for him. He's been too forthright. He's told people his innermost incantations, and it's backfired on him. And beyond my natural inclination to eye roll, I think it makes sense for him because aggregators have changed their algorithms. He's no longer getting enough pocket money back on from all of his efforts that he puts into his diary of a wimpy yid.
Right.
And my only question mark for him is that how is he going to keep morale going, reporting back pretty much pure fantasy on 15-year-old boys? You know? Because and charge you 60 quid, because telling us that Calvin Thomas Biscuit Barrel is going to be the next greatest central midfield player, and he's 14 and a half next Thursday. I don't see that worth 60 quid, and but I think it's going that way, and that's the only reason I mention it. It's football. He's Tottenham. It's happening this week, but
I feel at the moment like. Football writing, it doesn't know where it is. It's all over the shop.
Correct.
And so you've got you, and you've been around since 2000.
Too long. 4, 5.
Yeah. So pretty long-standing, fair to say. One of the first.
Well, most of it was spent sat down, really.
Oh, yes, or lying down the odd.
Or blind drunk, if we're going to be absolutely truthful about things.
Absolutely. And then you've got all of these safe space social media types, and then you've got The Athletic, which seems to be going in a rather strange direction after its previous long form thorough approach.
Well, I take a view that The Athletic is a behemoth of like a big oil tanker type thing, because the football thing that that I'm interested in clicking on that comes through it is actually a fraction of their business, and you only have to look at the recent betting deal that they've hammered out, and it's very states based.
Yeah.
And if you look at the comments,
completely different beast.
You look at the comments in a lot of the football stuff, there's a lot of Americans there.
Never read the comments.
There's a lot of Americans on there, and there's a lot of Go Team stuff, which makes my heart sink.
Yay, sports.
Yeah, go sports, wings, sports, beer, it's 3%. Do the backstroke in your beer and not get wobbly. But I've noticed a really disconcerting trend because I'm a Athletic subscriber, and that's another question we should be discussing. How much, if you're with The Athletic, did you pay for your I need a prescription for your and is it better yet? Because I got mine for £1.
That reminds me, the dog needs his neck scarred. Don't let me forget.
Fantastic. Do you mind if I carry on? Don't need to put any washing out or anything.
Oh, so yeah, there is that. Yeah. It's good washing day today, actually.
Unbelievable. I'm sorry about that gunshot, listeners. So I want to know how much you're paying for your subscription, because I was on
If it's more than £1 a month.
Well, I was on the full £9 thing, and then I kept on seeing these deals on various, like on Facebook and Twitter and so on. So I emailed them and said, "Hi, how do I take advantage of this special offer?" And they said it's not open to existing customers. So I said, "All right." Thank the person who ever came up with that, and I'll cancel. Mm-hmm. So I cancelled, and I then found an offer that said it was for £1. But when I got through to the page, the link that they put on I think it was on Facebook as well, or somewhere else, it wanted £4.
Yeah.
So I emailed them and I said, "Why doesn't this link work properly?" And they then gave me a bespoke link for me to get it for £1. Ooh. So how much are you paying? I think some of you listening might be overpaying. But the point about The Athletic is that it went from, and I'll be totally honest, I look at it from my perspective with the blog, and I'm looking for those magic words The Athletic understands halfway down the Tottenham article, because I don't need 1,200 words to tell me what happened with the bail money or whatever the hell it is. Otherwise, I'd go and buy one of Martin Cloak's.
You know all about bail money.
I wanted to go and buy one of Martin Cloak's books if I wanted to, Death of 1,000 Cuts. But so they went from that thing. So they give you a thing saying like, Tottenham's backline, what's the problem? And then they halfway down the thing, or 2/3 of the way down, said the Athletic understands that there's been a few bust-ups in the training ground involving Eric Dier and the Sandwich Lady or something. They give you a little bit of insight and you take it in good faith like we do with all this stuff. And that was it. And I had to think to myself, I've got a bit of value there, a little tidbit, I can embellish that and get it out and do a piece, and, it's another one under the thing. But this typified it recently. The long-form analysis is still there, but it's now, I feel, or it has been of late, so we'll see what happens in a week or a month or a year, but it's now being led by the mood on social media, which is, like we've said, is this sort of puddle of effluence that people... So these fans say that so-and-so should have his head chopped off, and I don't think that's a great way to go. I think that isn't providing any light in the darkness. Yeah. But Jack Pitt-Brooke recently published a piece, and I mean recently, like last week or this week, which said that a voice, or more than one voice, I think was the dancing on the head of the pin language, was that there were dressing room discontent with Mourinho. And I haven't got it here, what was said, but it was pretty mealy stuff. It was like, just punt it up to Kane and so-and-so. And this thing that's sort of almost this Mourinho trope, one of them that's emerged, that he doesn't practice, attacking moves. It's all defending. Well, I tell you something, if I took over Tottenham Hotspur, the first thing
defence is what needs working on.
First thing I'd do, because we've been going backwards since we sold Carl Walker, and that's almost an oxymoron. In fact, he's an oxymoron. But we go. So anyway, Pitt-Brooke puts out this piece saying that discontent, and that rang a bell with me. So I went through the blog, because it's got a little search function in the top right hand corner, and you put a few words in, and it's pretty good because it's via Google. So It works. Well, it also even manages to get past my lack of SEO, which is fantastic. But he published a very similar piece in 2019 with players bemoaning Maurizio Pochettino and his training methods.
Funny that.
So, given the fact that there hasn't been the churn, that dressing room has still got... I mean, Eric Dier, 7th season he's in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Eric, he's 25. Eric Lamela, he's 27, 28, 105.
His hips don't lie.
Hips don't lie. It's in the way that he uses them, but he's been here 8 seasons or 9. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not suggesting either of them are involved in that, but I'm just saying if you've still got a dressing room with a lot of old familiar faces in, and you're telling me that in 2019 some of them weren't happy, and you're telling me in 2021 that some of them aren't happy. Yeah, it's Mourinho's fault. Throw him onto the floor and hit him with your flip-flops.
So, I mean, there's at the moment, it feels like there's such a massive change needed in so many different aspects. Yeah. There's the football writing side of it. I mean, the newspapers have lost the plot ages ago. But also, everything's just so staid. Apart from your blog, of course, and this podcast. But the football writing and our club... it feels like something needs to shift. Something needs to...
Well, we've had this conversation before, and the culture of any business comes from the top.
True.
And like I always say, it's not the guys in the loading bay that make your experience shopping with a certain department store unpleasant or unpalatable. It's the top... There's a little room up in the management suite where the top 5 heads of each department meet up with the overall boss. And I'll keep it like that for retail because I've been there. Mm-hmm. And those people, they have they have the clout, the oomph, the relationships, which are either cold and nasty or warm and nice or somewhere in between, that's professional.
Yeah.
And they influence the mood of the entire store.
Yes.
And I've been in the little management suite at the top of the thing, and it was so horrible. And anyway, and that is how, and it's funny because it's how Tottenham works. And we saw this absolute fantasy, this total like stage play of Donna Marie Cullen and Daniel and Laughing Boy Hitchin sat there in the canteen. They're all like, oh yeah, with an untouched croissant and an unsipped capo mochaccino, and yeah, call me Daniel, open neck shirts, all that thing. Anybody who believed a nanosecond of that,
yeah,
please,
yeah.
just honestly, but that's the culture, and this is why we have. I mean, I see it in other clubs. I occasionally watch presses of other clubs, but we're producing people, and it goes back to a much broader conversation, which I'm not going to go into. But we've got mostly millennials sat there asking stupid questions, and that's the problem. And so we get poor reporting, we get mindless reporting, and we get people chasing buttons online. So the quality has gone through the floor. And I mean, just to put it like this, I was making fun of WendyCOYS, but he at least does have a direction. There is some class of product there. I'm questioning, at the age of 50, how interesting discussing 15-year-old boys in shorts might be. But a lot of millennials will be quite taken up with that. Yeah. How many of them he gets to part with 60 quid, I don't know. But I tell you something, a lot of these characters that are out there pumping out thousands of blogs a day, nobody's going to pay for that. Nobody's going to pay to read Spurs Web, here is the city, this is football. Nobody's going to pay to hear them rewrite, to regurgitate. The Telegraph are saying this, the Sun is saying this, the Daily Express, God help us, even worse than the Mirror. These lefty rags are saying that because it doesn't have any inherent value.
Do you know, I feel like Mourinho must be one of the most patient men on the planet. He's got the media on. It's like this triangle of awfulness. There's the media. There's Tottenham Hotspur.
It's the triumvirate of death. It's the triumvirate of death, is what it is.
And nutty supporters.
Well, do you remember the other week? And I did a little bit of digging. I made 2 Google search requests, and God help me, I can't even remember her name, but there was some
that often happens.
Dreadful woman who had asked him some stupid question, asked Mourinho some stupid question, and he said, "I'm not going to give you an answer."
Didn't he tell her it was a question or something? Didn't he say that?
Yeah, maybe say it's a stupid question, so I'm not going to anoint it with an answer, whatever the thing was. But do you know something? She's got form for asking stupid questions, and she even did a post on her own idiot, girly, giggly blog. And I say that not because I'm a misogynist pig. It's just that if you're going to be a woman and do something, it doesn't have to be all about your ability to reproduce. Or the fact that you wear suspenders. If you're going to be a professional person in a professional place, I don't need any, And she got yards of form for it, and she. I
don't think it matters whether you're male or female. It's about competence.
Correct. Because that's what we call a meritocracy, and that's why we don't have guidelines, thank Christ, yet. For we need to. We're recruiting. We're going to need another midget and another Nigerian. No, but that's the way it works. Or another Englishman. That's something you're never going to hear. But all this sort of stuff. So we don't need a diversity statistic. We need competent people. And that's, I think, what we're talking about here generally with the reportage of football, that there aren't enough competent people involved. And they're the ones that are going to get stung. Because if you're just regurgitating and it's going the way of the paywall, be them big or small, you're not going to get paid. You're not going to get paid. So I am pedalling my own canoe, and I go down this route.
Do you pedal canoes?
Well, if you cheat, yeah. You see me actually doing all the rope? No. Drill holes in the floor.
I can see you on one of those boats in the park, though. Those
the
pedal boat things. That is right up your street.
Well, I have to confess.
With a massive ice cream afterwards.
Well, before, during, and afterwards, folks. But I have to confess.
Great big 99.
I could actually give you
with
some
sprinkles.
I could actually give you a real insight into my formative years, because near where we lived at one stage, there was a boating lake and a miniature golf thing. Now, it tells you a lot
miniature golf. Did they have a windmill?
There was a clown with its mouth open
who
got very nervous when I strode up towards it, I can tell you, with my sawn-off golf stick. Golf stick, yes. You could tell he was a professional. You could tell he was a professional by the cut of his dentures.
Got all the right terminology and everything.
Yeah, it's my serve. So
highly professional.
Yeah, well, what we're up against inside the club, and I've got to leave everybody hanging on a knife edge of doom, as unless Levy the Leopard changes his spots, then inevitably the cycle of doom will continue itself. This squad, as it stands, unless something miraculous happens, and I'm not talking about Dele Alli scoring against bloody Sound of Music 11, then this squad will be Mourinho's Waterloo. So there you go. There you go. I've got a good line there that I didn't read out, so I'm just going to throw it here. People who are relying on Dele Alli and Gareth Bale also think the A-Team was a documentary series.
Hey!
Boom, boom. There you go. The podcast that gives you every single drop of blood.
And a podcast pooch.
Yeah.
You could probably hear all the way through that.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to rehome him.
I think he's a tiny bit miffed.
Yeah, he's not a tiny bit anything. He's 50 kilos. Right, thanks very much, folks. See what I did there? The look on your face.
The look on the dogs, it's jumped up now.
Okay, this is garbage. They've indulged us. Do the rewind-up thing.
Shall I?
Yeah.
Okay. Keep it, Tottenham.
Goodbye!
Well done. You made it through to the end. Do us a favour. Like, rate, review, subscribe. And tell your friends about us, because they've not been through enough this last year. Cheers, guys. Keep it, Tottenham.